Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Let's start with a very good news first. So, here's the stats of what's on the rise. It's economic well-being, life expectancy, quality of life, disposable income, and here's what's going down: poverty, wars, mortality, and epidemics. So, there's lots of reason to be happy, but are we really? I guess no, because we have a very big problem in front of us. Normally, when we talk about pollution, we have these basic 7 to 8 traits of pollution in our mind. But thanks to this MC presentation, at least I came to know about a very big problem, that is discourse pollution. So for the next 15 minutes, our team will be trying to develop a structure and framework defining what actually is discourse pollution, and then we'll be proposing some solution on the micro, exo, and macro level. So what is discourse? Discourse is basically an exchange, discussion, speech, language, talk. In other words, all forms of communication. Communication that affects our life, society, and the community that we live in. So when we talk about communication, we have a statement of purpose, statement of definition. And all these statements are based upon 4 basic foundation pillars: assumption, belief, background, and common sense. And all these statements, while we project those statements, those are either we reinforce this 4 foundation or we challenge them. And anyhow, we define an identity of the statement. And this is the basic framework on which we are defining the pollution. In our frame, we have a conceiver and we have a perceiver. Conceiver is someone who is delivering a communication, and perceiver is someone who is at the receiving end. So the speaker or writer, who is the conceiver, based his dialect or form of communication on 2 aspects: who is the recipient and what is the position. The position here refers to the direction to which he wants to lead the receiver. And the listener, he tries to situate himself in the meaning of the context. In other words, whenever a speaker delivers a dialect or communicate to the listener, the receiver tries to situate himself in that context. He tries to find a place for himself in that dialect. And based upon that, he responds. So what is a pollution? Elimination of any of these 4 traits is a pollution. In other words, we define pollution as the presence of any harmful toxic substance in the environment or community. In case of discourse pollution, we like to define it as the absence of any one of these 4 traits in communication. And whenever one of these 4 traits is absent, we give rise to an unhealthy identity. In other words, presence of these 4 foundation pillars give rise to a healthy identity, and absence of any one of these traits gives rise to an unhealthy identity. And whenever we have an unhealthy identity, we give rise to a pollution. And that is what public discourse pollution is all about. Going by an example, whenever we visit a street side vendor or something, what is the way of communicating with the vendor? Like, bhaiya, give me a bottle of water. Whenever we go to a posh restaurant, can we communicate in the same way? What if we say to the waiter, like, can a bottle dena? The first instant, the waiter will come up with a perception, like, is he at the wrong place, or what the hell is he talking? What if we are in a classroom? What if we talk to a teacher like this? Maybe I call my teacher by a first name and ask, like, can you clear this doubt? So idea is, what is wrong in all these 3 contexts? That my communication is working in the first case, but it's not working in any of these 2 cases. The point is, we are illiterate. We are quite illiterate in the disclosure that we are displaying. My literacy is very well versed with talking to a vendor, but my literacy is absolutely vague when I talk to a waiter in a restaurant, or when I communicate with a faculty in a class. So my literacy gives rise to a very unhealthy identity, and that is the reason my community is polluted, and the communication that I deliver is an unhealthy one, and that gives rise to the pollution. Going ahead, my teammates will portray a few situations in our society, and we'll have a different analysis through various lenses that we can project.
Hello. No matter how far we had come, companies targeting male demographics will continue to objectify women as sexual objects. This culture influences and distracts marketing companies and women as the object that is being persuaded as sexual. They are distracting us from the women as a sexual human being to being a human being. Nowadays, when there is an increase in the Photoshop, the woman is being perceived as flawless. So let us see some features of the women. These women. These women have no wrinkles. These women have no scars. These women have no blemishes. In short sense, they have perfect skin. These women have long legs. These are flawless. These women have small waist. These women have ample breasts, which are gravity-defying miracle. These women have teeth who are above than white. So in short sense, these are the women who are in the counter fold, who are in the center fold of the Playboy magazine. These are the women who are being mentioned in the perfume ads. These are the women who we want to stand by. But these are also the women who we say to our little girls to be like them, to be like that flawless skin, to get that white teeth. But there is a problem. And the problem is this type of woman never exists anywhere. This is a product of hours of makeup products, hours of photoshopping, even when she is a supermodel. Women have imperfection in their skin because women are human beings. The way women are being portrayed as objects, it has implicit, intense discourse pollution because it is perceived in a way which is different from the it was meant to be. It is being produced in a very different way when it was meant to be produced, when it was being advertised. So let us see some figures. Men are being 4 times more likely to be in the advertisements as compared to women. Men are 7 times more likely to speak in the ads. When it comes to the jobs, 1 in every 4 women are being portrayed as having jobs, while most of them are being portrayed showing them in the kitchen. When it comes to the age, most of the women are being portrayed in the early 20s, and men are in 20s, 30s, and 40s. Going by the context, the pollutants are cognitive functioning, physical and mental health disorders, and pollution is depression, eating disorders, and low self-esteem.
So now I want to continue with what Kanan said. So this is, as you all know, that he is Arnab Goswami, and he is famous for his like always being in aggressive nature and violent. So currently he is running a new channel called Republic channel. So Republic is showing what you want to see, but this is not always correct. The reality is different. You cannot select the new channel blindly. For example, it is the responsibility of the new channel to present the news as it is and not distort or violate any information of fact. So we as a viewer, we should select the we can't select the news channel blindly. And for example, if you see the Arnab Goswami, he is very aggressive and and he doesn't allow other person to speak. He is totally biased toward his own personal opinions, and he doesn't give weight to his opponent's opinions. So this is not a good public discourse. And even you may have noticed that during the different news channels, not only this, like others also news channels all around the globe, people come together to discuss a particular thing. But after a while, they start talking about a topic which is totally irrelevant, and this deviates the meaning of the purpose for which the discussion was held. So actually, it is just we can call it a garbage bin model. So this is also one of the major factors which is causing a pollution in the public discourse. So now the parliamentary bills. Now you may wonder that why parliamentary bills are included in the public discourse topic. So the parliamentary bills are generally are also a major source of public discourse because they include the debates and discussion for which the consensus is arrived, and consensus is arrived, and they can take a beneficial, they can take decision which is beneficial for the society. Now starting with the Lokpal Bill. Lokpal, I am taking the example of Lokpal Bill because it is one of the most pending bill in the Indian Parliament history. So it was generally introduced in 1968 in the Lok Sabha, and it took even after more than 8 unsuccessful attempts, it was only in the 2011 that government recognized it with a serious note after the anti-corruption movement by the Anna Hazare. So this can like there was a totally heated discussion, there was totally a clash of interest, and there were also many other factors which led to the delay in this passing of the bill. It took more than like approximately nearly 45 years to pass this bill. Now the second example which I want to give is euthanasia legalized. So does anyone know here what is euthanasia? What exactly it means? Yeah, exactly. So actually there are two types of euthanasia. One is passive euthanasia and one is active euthanasia. So passive euthanasia means like you are withdrawing the medical treatment so that person is allowed to die. And in active euthanasia, what you do is that you just give him medical drugs so that he can die. So active euthanasia is a little bit more harsher, and it is not legalized in India. So, so euthanasia in India was totally legalized due to the case of Aruna Sonbag. She was a nurse in a hospital, and she was stranded by a sweeper in which she felt a deep injury, and she was paralyzed, and she was in coma for many years. So her friend filed a case of filed a petition with the Supreme Court allowing her to death because she was totally living a very harmful life. So this case also took like around 10 years to pass to make it legal, and this was mainly because of the different factors. For example, many people on the one side say that we cannot legalize the passive euthanasia because it leads to killing of the person before the natural death. While there was also another source, like another people on the different side, they were saying that we should allow the euthanasia because it's better to die rather than living a depressful or painful life. Now I want to give mic to Chinmay.
Hello. Good evening, guys. Can anybody guess which is this kind of public discourse pollution? Yeah, thank you. So when does the classroom classroom participation becomes a pollution? When convergent responses are there, which only whose aim mainly is to get a standard answer and reach to a conclusion as soon as possible and lack creativity. There is also a rare chance for peer learning. Then teachers rely on a handful of students to drive the class. Then secondly, the main aim becomes to just get a standard answer and finish the course as soon as possible and give correct and standard answer and score good grades. So this is not the aim. What class participation should actually be. Actually, a rich classroom discourse should have divergent response, respecting different perceptions and reaching and adding creativity and reaching a good conclusion, a better result. Also, it gives a platform for peer learning in a holistic way. It encourages, it enhances eager participation, provides conducive environment for eager participation from entire class, not just from few handful of people. Then secondly, the goal is to formulate strategic thinking among students. Next, this is a very normal pollution trending nowadays in creating sensation out of daily lives of the celebrities and involving them in unnecessary paparazzi, such an extent that even a small kid of a star is also involved. You must be knowing about this pollution that occurred recently, where the young actress was charged against her one scene due to her scene in her unreleased movie. but this got resolved very quickly, so thanks to that. Next, this is a public, this is a very serious pollution in the public discourse, the presentation of the item song. Do you think this is the most holistic way of quality entertainment? No. These cheap lyrics where a woman is objectified, one person makes this song, one person writes such lyrics, few people make such song, and crores of people watch such song. So some people might argue this is a celebration of women's sensuality. But do you think this is the appropriate way of celebrating women's sensuality? This only, moreover, these songs are out of context, and these songs are out of the narration and they have been put inside this film just for the purpose of titillation, and they have no other creative purposes. So next, also women objectification is more encouraged when mainstream actresses such as Kareena Kapoor performs on such cheap songs. So and this should stop because Bollywood has the power to influence a wide audience, a wide impressionable audience. Women objectification should not be encouraged from such a wide platform. Rather, this should become a platform where women emancipation is portrayed at a much creative light, at a much fruitful light. Because music should be a matter of fun and entertainment for everybody, but sexual violence should not. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. So, what is fake news? Fake news, we all know, right? It is already present in India from a long time. Now, what is fake news? A lot of people come together, and what they do, they modify the facts. They just bend the truth for their personal interest. Okay, and these are some examples of fake news. Currently, we have seen in Kerala floods, a lot of fake news were there on a social media. So, social media is a tool where people post a lot of things, and it spreads very fast, and it creates very much impact on a society. So. Here, Chief Minister of Kerala, he just posted on tweet. He said Kerala government got 700 crore from UAE, but he haven't verified. Like when someone asked to ambassador of UAE, are you like given this much money? So at that time he said no. The discussions are still going on. So without verifying the fact, people are posting things on a social media, and. Here there is one person who wear army clothes, and he was posting things how Kerala government is not doing proper things to for Kerala people relief. And here on Z News there is one example. They said that President Kovind earned 3.25 million followers on Twitter within a minutes of taking over as India's 14th president. But this was not the fact. The account was already on a Twitter on the name of President of India. The fact is, previous president changed and he took a power. So those many followers he already get. So that was the thing. Now I'll show one video.
आलू के किसानों को कहा ऐसी मशीन लगाऊंगा, इस साइड से आलू घुसेगा, उस साइड से सोएगा। इस साइड से आलू डालो, उस साइड से सोना निकालो। इतना पैसा बनेगा, आपको पता नहीं होगा क्या करना है पैसा।
Now you guys might be feeling like why this video is here, right?
आलू के किसानों को
okay, so you guys might be feeling why this video is here. So what actually happened? This is just a clip of 20 or 30 seconds. The entire speech was 26 minutes. So what someone did, he just cut the first part, he cut the last part, and the 20-second clip is shown here. That is the first problem. And the second thing is what he was trying to say. Like in one of the meeting, Mr. Modi's speech, he states something. We have so many farmers who grow potatoes, and we should start industry where we can produce chips. So he was trying to make a fun of him, but someone just took a clip and it went against him. Okay, so these are 7 different types of fake news. Why fake news happens? So it can be satire or parody. It can be misleading content. It can be imposed content. It can be fabricated content. The post can have a false connection. The post can have a false context, and it can be manipulated content. Now the thing is, how we'll get to know this news is authentic or not? So we should always check. Consider the sources. Is it from a correct source? Check the author. The author is right or wrong. Check the date. It is a present or past. Check your biases. Suppose I am a Hindu or I am a Muslim, then I should not read that news in that perspective. Read beyond. Don't focus only on the headings. Go inside the text. Are there supporting sources? Is it a joke? Like someone just make one comment, it can be sarcastically, but you took it personally. And last but not the least, ask the experts. If you don't know anything about it, then you can ask the expert and confirm. Now we have done the presentation. These are some solutions we have come up with. So on a microsystem, microsystem starts from our home. So what we should do, we should inculcate the values and discourse etiquettes at home to our children. We should become self-aware. Why? Because when we are forwarding any message on a WhatsApp.
Thank you. I think that's evident there, self-explanatory.
Okay.
Yeah. Just wrap it up. Any further
Open
slides?
for questions.
Okay. Open for questions.
Can you please help me understand the euthanasia part and the woman part? How is it related to the topic here, public discourse?
Hello. So I took the euthanasia part because I want to show the parliamentary inefficiency, because it is taking more than approximately it took 13 years to pass that bill. So I know there public discourse means there is a discussion. So I know that during the discussion there will be clash of interest, there will be heated discussion, there will be altercation. That's okay. But the thing is that it should be for a shorter period of time. If you are elongating it to 13 to 14 years, then that's not appropriate. So you are just wasting the. So it is just a waste of energy and time of the parliament. It is reflecting the pollution. The pollution is because.
See, the listener context, when it is written, the audience try to situate themselves in the context, in the meaning of the context. So the person who initiated the bill, she tried to project it onto the authority government. But what happened? The government was not sync with what she pitched. The different section of the government found themselves in different location of the situation, of the context, and that produced a pollution, and that dragged the problem for so long, and that's the reason it took 13 years to actually get the bill passed. Had there been no pollution, had the core foundation of this context been intact, we couldn't see any pollutant, and then hence the bill could have been passed.
That might be a traffic jam, not a pollution.
The pollution. See, I can relate anything with these 4 pillars.
With that forced thing, you can relate to anything, right? But traffic jam, this is maybe, there's a traffic in the channel, and therefore, that happened, So in that case, if you consider that as a pollution, then all the legal battles that we have are pollution. Would you consider that? Because what is the average time it takes to really deliver justice? If at all you get justice. In India? That's another question, yeah. So therefore I think you have to restrict it to something else. Someone? Yeah. Okay. Oh, the woman part, okay. People are interested in the woman part.
Yeah. So, you portrayed that women are being, posed and objectified and posed in wrong connotations, but isn't that the requirement of the industry? Say, if there's a lingerie industry, should women wear totally, The whole point is that how could you portray lingerie without less clothes?
But what is the sense of portraying women in perfume ads in this way when adolescent boys sees that? It is increasing rape culture also.
How?
How? As you are adolescent boy, assume it. You are seeing this sort of things.
Yeah.
See that the first remote control ever invented. What sort of post it is?
The
I
point
will-
is that the
Or lingering
target
thing, for lingering
audience.
thing, it is okay to do that, but for the companies, they have product that could be differentiated on the point of differences, on the point of parity, and they could also differentiate on the basis of competitors they had.
How would you differentiate smell in an advertisement?
How would you, did you buy a perfume on the basis of how many women they are portraying, or how many number of clothes they are wearing, or what sort of quantities in the clothes that they are wearing?
That is a matter of choice. That is under their ambit of freedoms,
Sir.
and they can choose to do so. So it's like you're curtailing the freedom of an entire industry because you feel the women are objectified. The purpose underlying is the fact that it is the need of the industry, and it's okay.
Sir,
You need to
if I may-
understand the boundary between the freedom, between the requirement, the degree of requirement, but it is used unnecessary in every platform. As in, you see item songs, you see
Item
unnecessary.
songs are targeted at what? Like, what do you think that item songs are doing wrong?
They are polluting the mind of many people. Like,
Items
Yeah.
are polluting our minds.
Just a statement that when,
see, listen to the lyrics carefully.
yeah, okay.
Not only the
Talking about the lyrics, there are if you listen to the lyrics of Eminem and other well-renowned artists, even those lyrics have plenty of it, but nobody complains that it is increasing rape culture. So
yeah, my presentation was restricted to our culture,
right.
but that
Udit?
that exists everywhere, not just in India.
I will address that. Just hold on. Okay.
So this
Udit.
particular representation of what the women are, being represented in form of. There is a, if you have ever seen Victoria's Secret fashion show, there is a way in which they represent lingerie in a most, protected form wherein the woman's dignity is not indignified. They protect their dignity. I'm sorry? That is a lingerie brand, right? Victoria's Secret is a lingerie brand.
Yeah.
And the way they portray it, it is not indignified. So this kind of portrayal is very much different from what we see there. So there is also a way. This is also a portrayal of fashion, right? Have you ever seen that? Yeah, so that is the way they add props.
All right. It has generated a lot of.
So they are portraying lingerie, right?
I believe it's the context which is more important. So how you portray sexuality. So if you are having a lingerie brand, then probably you need to have that kind of models to wear the object which you are selling. But let's say if you are selling hamburgers and you are portraying sexuality, then it doesn't make sense. Good marketing sense.
I'd like to argue upon this.
No, sure.
Sir, last thing. The point is, the lingerie item should be branded as a fabric and the style rather. But what happens? It's all projected as a way. The woman is projected in a glorified way, and the audience, instead of situating themselves in the quality of the brand or quality of the fabric or the style of the fabric, they situate themselves in a sensual and seducing manner. So that is the reason it's a pollution.
Now, here is the thing, so if you are selling a burger and you need a, Hooters, yes. What happens, when you go to, how do they serve? Why do you go to those restaurants, right? You're the ladies, right? So, is that is that considered to be public discourse?
This went down, so Hooter Airlines shut down sooner.
Yes, it is. In many ways, it depends on, are you going for burgers or are you going for? If you are going for that woman, then there are other sources. There are other sources, right? Why don't you go and travel there, right? Now the question is, can we Yeah, sex is beautiful. You know, sex is if you really think of you know, the creation. That I think the sex is the foundation of creation, right? Now the concept is that when it is somewhat, you know, subliminal way of selling things. You know, you probably would you know, study that in advertisement. You know, like even when there is no connection between the product and, you know, the advertisement. What you do basically, you try to entice people and, you know, direct them to sex. Is that ethical? If it is not ethical, then there is a question of polluting things, right? You know, what is ethical and what is unethical? Do we have the ethical responsibility to sell things, you know, so that, you know, do you have responsibility towards the society? And if you agree with that, the fact is, you know, yes, in fact, she mentioned about that, you know, at the age of adolescence, you know, when we are exposed to this kind of so-called perfect beauty, you know, our views of sex, women, men are distorted. And in fact, there have been studies in psychology that indicates that, you know, because of our early exposure to these kind of things, you know, especially in the Western country, you know, and even here now in India, you know, people are subjected to a lot of you know, unnatural way of analyzing things, and that lead them to sexual violence, especially, you know, men and women also feel sort of oppressed, you know, because of this kind of pressure, and therefore they tend to, you know, fit in that society. So there are ways, you know, so if you look at the psychological impact that it can create, you know, then you need to rethink, you know, whether that is the best way. So far, you know, we have been thinking, you know, that the sex sells. Yes, sex does, right? But are there other ways of also selling your stuff? We have to also really invest in that. And we have noticed that, you know, yes, there are other ways, other more responsible and ethical ways of selling your stuff, right? You know, so this is something that you need to really think of. Yes, Nilesh.
But mentioned about how are girls really important for selling hamburgers. So in USA, there's a brand called Hooters.
Yeah.
And in Hooters, like, that's the main thing. That's what they do. That's the niche they have created for themselves. So sexualization might be a problem. I'm not disagreeing with it. But is it really public discourse? Because they are just representing their beliefs through their business or through the establishment. It is up to a certain person. They're not even fighting for their beliefs. They're just saying, this is what we do. If you want
it becomes public discourse when you know, when you advertise that, right? You put a hoarding, right? What happens? That becomes the public, you know, that's the, you know, starting point of public discourse. So suppose if you go to a strip club, that's not public discourse. Maybe that's semi-public. You know, you go. Have you been to anyone here? Have been to a strip club here? I've been twice. You know, yeah. But you know, once you go there and then you realize, you know, what happens there, what kind of discourse actually then that is triggered by, you know, this prostitutes, you know, or the dancers, the, you know, bar dancers and all those things. And then what goes on after that? These are the triggers, right? You know, they themselves may not be the discourse, but they trigger public discourse in certain ways, and therefore, you know, what happens next? Right? You know, because if you look at the way the Hooters entice people, right? You know that, right? Their burgers are not that important. The asses are more important. Right? Yeah, it is true. That's why that's how. So if you really want to do that, make it a strip club. Why selling burgers? That we sell also burgers when you come to, you know, say, have fun with these things. You know, I would be that will be more honest way of selling things. That is where the problem begins, I guess, you know, because some of these things that happens, you know, because as you would go, you know, and you probably also learn that in our marketing classes, right? You know, how to, even when there is no need, you know, how to really create the desire in the buyer's mind so that, you know, people buy that, right? Yes?
The intent behind whole Hooters is not negative. It's just the way the people, the girls particularly, are dressed. Then if you say they are wrong in dressing like that, it's again curtailing their right of freedom. And in one video, if I remember correctly,
you see, in the US and many other airline industry, right? What happened? Usually the waitress or what do you call air hostess, right? They had to have certain shape and figure, when they recruit that thing, And after a certain age, you are not allowed to serve, and that is when it was challenged. Right? Now, you also see that even in Air India, in fact, I know, people actually talk about that Air India mein to auntie log serve karte kyun jaye udhar, yeah? Usse SpiceJet and all those things happen, So that becomes, talking point. Are you really concentrating on service? Or are you service on a different context? No, that's also service. If you do your boob jobs, that's also service, right? That's what, that's the point we are talking about. What is your point? I would go by any airline that serves me well, that take care of my needs and all those things. If you can justify that, yes, women of certain shape and age are more, fit for these kind of jobs, I would take that. But now, talking about whether that creates, that itself is not a public discourse, but that is the trigger. And advertisements and these, I guess, what do you call, the item numbers and all those things, could, and not necessarily always. Choli ke piche kya hai? You heard that song, right? You know that original lyrics behind that, it was later changed. Choli ke piche dil hai mera. Before that, it was something else. I don't remember exactly. So even when you say that choli ke piche dil hai mera, right? The moment that even this is called semiotics. You must also learn semiotics of public discourse. Certain things, because language is symbolic. The moment you talk about choli, you don't think of dil. Do you? So this is how we entice people. Right, and we need to understand, and this is what, those of you who would be going to marketing must understand semiotics, very well, which, there's icon symbols and indexes, when there is a smoke, there is a fire, See, this is how very intelligently used also in films, right? Earlier when you could not, explicitly show physical intimacy, how do you really convey that one? Flower, not just flower. A bee is sitting on the flower, or two legs just, door slowly closing, So all those things, So, yeah, those are things, there. I thought, anyway, so you need to really understand that. Who's saying that, we are not blaming that and we are blaming just this one? So you were saying that, slangs and all those things do not have any, role in violence,
To answer you, I'm okay with sexuality on screen, even full frontal nudity, which is actually becoming quite norm these days. But when Kareena Kapoor comes scantily clad and sings like, I'm Tandoori Mood, Gatka lo mujhe alcohol, so what are you exactly trying to propagate to the people?
I'm not trying, it's not
I mean, fine. It's probably sexual, and people increases views. 110 million.
We need to understand the extent. Yes, sir. I'm right. Am I right? That's what we are saying, sir. How it acts as a pollutant. Yeah. There needs to be.
There are songs. These are not the only songs.
But the actors also need to be more responsible for that.